The fluorescent lights of LaGuardia. Airport buzzed overhead as Sarah Mitchell stood in the economy check-in line, her worn leather purse clutched tightly against her chest. She was exhausted, not just from the early morning flight she was about to board, but from the weight of rebuilding a life that had crumbled 3 years ago. Her daughter Emma needed surgery, and Sarah had been working double shifts at the diner, just to afford the plane ticket, to see her across the country. The divorce had stripped her of almost everything: the house, the car, the comfortable life she'd once known. But it had also stripped away something far more valuable: her belief that she mattered. That's when she heard the laugh, that unmistakable, condescending laugh that used to echo through their kitchen whenever she'd suggest something he deemed foolish. She turned, and there he was, Marcus, her ex-husband, standing in the first-class line with a woman half his age draped on his arm, designer luggage stacked on a gold cart beside them. Their eyes met for a split second, and Sarah quickly looked away, heat rising to her cheeks. She prayed he wouldn't notice her, wouldn't approach, wouldn't make this already difficult morning any worse. But prayer and Marcus had never been compatible. "Sarah, is that you?" His voice carried across the terminal, drawing stares. He stepped out of his line, leaving his companion behind with an annoyed expression. "Wow, I almost didn't recognize you. You look different." Different meant tired. Different meant the gray roots showing through her home-dyed hair. Different meant the clearance rack coat that had seen 3 winters. "Hello, Marcus." She kept her voice steady, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. He glanced at the economy line she stood in, then back at his first-class queue, and that smirk appeared, the one she'd grown to hate in the final years of their marriage. "Still taking the budget route, I see." "Some things never change." He leaned in, lowering his voice just enough to seem confidential, but loud enough for others to hear. "You know, if you'd been more ambitious, more refined, maybe things would have worked out differently for you. I tried to elevate you, Sarah, but you always preferred being ordinary." The words stung because they were designed to. Marcus had always been a craftsman of cruelty, knowing exactly where to press to cause the most pain. The people around them pretended not to listen, but Sarah could feel their eyes, their judgment, their pity. "I need to check in," she said quietly, turning back to the line. "Of course you do." "Wouldn't want to miss that middle seat in row 35. He chuckled, returning to his companion, who giggled on cue. "Good luck with everything, Sarah. You're going to need it." Sarah blinked back tears as she moved forward in line. She wouldn't cry, not here, not in front of him. She'd cried enough tears over Marcus Mitchell to fill an ocean, and she'd promised herself those days were over. Her hands trembled as she handed her ID to the check-in agent, a kind-faced woman named Gloria, whose name tag sparkled with a small American flag pin. "You okay, honey?" Gloria asked softly, glancing over Sarah's shoulder at Marcus's retreating form. "I'm fine," Sarah lied, accepting her boarding pass. "Just a long morning." She made her way through security, found her gate, and sank into an uncomfortable plastic chair. The airport was crowded with the usual chaos: business people shouting into phones, families corralling children, travelers sleeping across rows of seats. Sarah closed her eyes and thought of Emma. Sweet Emma with her father's dark eyes, but thankfully none of his cruelty. The surgery was minor, the doctors had assured her, but Sarah needed to be there. A mother's presence mattered, even if an ex-husband thought otherwise. "Excuse me, Ms. Mitchell?" A woman's voice broke through her thoughts. Sarah opened her eyes to find a young, professional woman in a crisp navy suit standing before her, holding a tablet. "I'm Rebecca Chen from Meridian Aviation Services. Could you come with me for a moment?" Sarah's stomach dropped. Had something happened? Was there a problem with her ticket? With Emma? Is everything all right? "My daughter." "Your daughter is fine," Rebecca assured her with a warm smile. "There's simply been a change to your travel arrangements. If you'll follow me." Confused, Sarah gathered her things and followed Rebecca through the terminal. They walked past the standard gates, past the premium passenger lounges, past areas Sarah had never even noticed in all her years of flying economy. They stopped at a private entrance where a security guard nodded them through. "I think there's been a mistake," Sarah said, her heart pounding. "I have an economy ticket to—" "No mistake. Ms. Mitchell." Rebecca pushed open a glass door that led to the tarmac. Outside, gleaming in the morning sun, sat a private jet. Not just any private jet, but the kind Sarah had only seen in magazines. "Your flight is ready." Sarah stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. "I don't understand. There must be some error. I can't afford. Everything has been taken care of." An older gentleman descended. The jet's stairs, distinguished in a gray suit with silver hair and laugh lines around his eyes. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Robert Chen, Rebecca's father. And many, many years ago, you were my waitress at a little diner in Queens." Sarah searched her memory and then it clicked. 5 years ago, maybe 6. A well-dressed older man who'd come in late one night, soaked from the rain. The diner had been about to close, but Sarah had seated him anyway. Brought him hot coffee and the meatloaf special. They'd talked, really talked about life and loss. He'd just lost his wife to cancer, and Sarah had sat with him during her break, listening as he shared memories of their 50-year marriage. "Mr. Chen? I remember you. You left me a $100 tip on a $15 meal, and you tried to give it back," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Said I needed it more than you did because grief was expensive. You were wrong about that. You needed it far more, I could see it even then. But your kindness that night, your willingness to simply listen to an old man's heartbreak, meant more than you could ever know. But I don't understand what this has to do with. I was in the terminal this morning. I saw what happened with your ex-husband." Robert's expression softened. "I've been successful in my life, Ms. Mitchell, very successful. And I've learned that the world has far too few genuinely kind people in it. When I saw you standing there, taking that man's cruelty with such dignity, I remembered that rainy night when you showed a stranger compassion he desperately needed." Tears were flowing freely now, and Sarah didn't try to stop them. "Mr. Chen, I can't accept this. It's too much." "Nonsense. The jet was already making this trip. My daughter is heading to San Francisco for business. You're simply joining her." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Besides, kindness should never go unrewarded, even if the reward comes years later. Your daughter needs you, and you should arrive rested, not exhausted from a cross-country flight in a middle seat." Rebecca stepped forward, smiling. "Dad talks about that night at the diner all the time. Says you helped him find his way back from the darkest place. This is the least we can do." Sarah looked back toward the terminal, where somewhere Marcus was probably boarding his first-class flight, still smug in his assumption of superiority. She thought about all the times he'd made her feel small, worthless, less than. And then she thought about that rainy night, about choosing to be kind when it would have been easier to close up and go home. "Thank you," she whispered, the words inadequate for what she felt. "Thank you so much." As the private jet lifted off 20 minutes later, Sarah gazed out the window at the city below. She thought about the strange paths life takes, about how a simple act of humanity can ripple forward through time in ways we never imagine. She thought about Emma waiting for her in California, and about the fact that she would arrive refreshed and ready to be the mother her daughter needed. But mostly, she thought about the truth that Marcus had never understood and never would. That real wealth isn't measured in first-class tickets or designer luggage. It's measured in the moments we choose compassion over convenience, connection over contempt, and kindness over cruelty. She had lost almost everything in the divorce, but she had kept the one thing that truly mattered, her humanity. And on that morning, in that private jet, Sarah Mitchell understood with perfect clarity that she had never been ordinary. She had been and would always be exactly what the world needed more of. Someone who chose to be kind, even when kindness came at a cost. Someone who saw value in others, even when others failed to see value in her. The jet climbed higher, breaking through the clouds into brilliant sunshine, and Sarah smiled. Not because of the luxury surrounding her, but because she finally understood. The best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's proving yourself right. And she had been right all along about what truly mattered in this life. Marcus would never understand that. But she didn't need him to. She never had.